Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Web3 and Chill. It's me, Aayush, joined with Vishal. And today we have Chantalle with us, who is a co-founder at Microbrewing Society. And she is a designer, a brand strategist, and also co-founder of NFT Artist Squad. So, hey, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited too.
Yeah. So why Web3? I mean, you're a designer, you're a brand strategist. Why did you get into this?
To get one step more back, I was into crypto in 2017, so not super early, but not super late, and that was like my first steps into that world, like into the crypto world. And I saw, of course, the NFT space rising, and I think it was. Now we have 2023. It was at the end of 2021 or in summer 21. A friend of mine, she's a co-founder too and an artist. And I got all the informations, but I was so focused on my business at that time that I just had a look on it, but didn't dive deep. Yeah. And at the end of 2021, I fell into that rabbit hole, got so many informations, didn't want to crawl out again. So now I'm here and totally bullish on this space.
That's great. So two of the podcasts which have been released previously are with Vanessa from Female Pleasure Society, with one of your co-founders from Metaverse Society. So these are two brands which are trying to build themselves in a very distributed way.
Yeah.
Why? And you have been, as you're associated with both of them, you did branding as well for Female Pleasure Society. Why use Web3 for branding?
Yeah.
What ads on social media?
Yeah. What I so love about that space is that people are super interested into new innovations, new products, new like communities and such. And what I love about when you're looking from the brand perspective on it, like from the company side, also from the branding and marketing side, that you don't really have like the typical classic customer. There's not someone looking at it, looks nice, buying it, and then they don't care. They really care about the project. And usually like you just like jump over the part that someone is just a customer, they're directly getting into fans of a brand. So what other big companies in like Web2 try to build up within years, like making someone from who's interested to a customer to a returning customer and then to a fan of the brand, you immediately have when someone usually tries to jump into the project because they're like super critical always. That's like our space. That's okay because you get so much feedback around it. But also you really have people spread the word and talk about that project because they're seriously interested from the beginning usually. And what I love too is the second thing which is a big challenging part, like the people are super critical about stuff, but you get a lot of feedback. So usually in the normal marketing and Web2 space, you are like, you have an idea of a product or a company, then you build it, then you launch, and then you get the feedback. And if the product is shit, you get the feedback when it's already on the market. And in Web3, usually like you try to onboard the people as a community way earlier when you're building, while you're building. So you get a very, very, very important market feedback, what they are really interested, what is working and what not. And that's what I love about that space too, from the marketing and design perspective, that you really have a lot of creative, smart people, a lot of business people, a lot of people who love innovation, otherwise they wouldn't be in the space. And you get a lot of very high quality feedback for your product, for your company, and all of that. So that was a long monologue, but that's why I'm bullish about that space and what I really love to work on.
We highly appreciate long monologues, so you can go on further if you want to. That's totally fine. Would you like to share some examples of the projects that you worked with for branding using Web3 and Web3?
Sure. For example, Female Pleasure Society. You mentioned Vanessa already. I did like the brand design and also like the art, like the PFP art for her or for Female Pleasure. And we really thought it should be a bit louder, a bit like colorful, playful, but leisureful to make it work. And also, what is a big challenge still is that there are not so many women in the space yet. So we really wanted to, as it's really a project which is about female pleasure and female empowerment, to make it look like it's for women and people who want to support women. So what I love about that is in Vanessa's case, like for Female Pleasure Society, but also like for my project, Metaverse Society, you not only have like a web design and social media and Discord and Twitter and all of that, we actually really have also products, like in real life products. Like, for example, we have the beer, and to connect the dots at every single touch point, that is at the end what makes the difference between just a design and branding. Because branding is if you're like connecting the dots between all touch points, that you give the brand value at every single, doesn't matter if it's social or in real life, or if we're going to for example, a conference or such, like Vanessa and Cornelius, like the founders of Female Pleasure, had a whole pink suit, like a tailored suit with their logo on it and such, and we're walking around, and they're really the people stopped them to make a photo with them, and that is pretty cool about the conferences, for example, what you can do there.
When it comes to brand design, the Web3 companies, the Web2 companies, do you see a difference when you approach brand design for both of them?
Yeah, I would say the Web3 brand design always looks a bit more innovative. Like, for example, using typical, more bolder fonts, more louder web designs with a lot of gradients and all. That looks pretty cool. That is like typical Web3. The thing is, what some companies, doesn't matter if it's like an NFT project or a Web3 consulting agency or such, sometimes forget is if everyone is using that kind of fonts and that kind of gradients, as all looks the same and they're not standing out anymore. So I would say the difference, or a big difference, is that you really try to look in Web3 like a bit Web3, like the typical, but as there are more and more projects and companies coming, luckily coming into the Web3 space, it would be great to stand out a bit more. And sometimes what like NFT projects forget, or I think they forget is really build also a branding and not just trying to focus on the PFP art, for example, or the NFT art. Because if you're looking at the space, the like brandings which are really standing out.
So today, a lot of traditional brands are entering the Web3 space. What do you think they should do in terms of in their design language, or how they should evolve their design language to appeal to the right consumer in the Web3, to blend in and to deliver a great message or experience?
I think what's super important, but most big brands are doing it right now, is that they're just a bit evolving like their design language, but in general, from a brand perspective, it's super important to be consistent. Doesn't matter if you're in Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, in real life, wherever. So for example, if Adidas is going to the space, of course they are already in the space, but going to the space, and they would look totally different, that people wouldn't get that it's Adidas or think it's a scam or whatever. So it's super important that they look the same. What I think is super important is that they are, for example, getting real like Web3 degens as consultants and such, because we saw that the last month or 1.5 or 2 years, a lot that big companies went into the space and it felt like they don't get how that space is working. So it feels like they're coming with a Web2 marketing agency who are saying like, let's do an NFT project, and with no utility, with like, they don't know how to grow a community or to make the community feel involved in something, and come to the space, and then they're surprised that they are failing, and they're like, the whole space is shit. It's not the space, it's most of the time that the brands and the companies just doing it not the right way. They don't get how the space is working, and how the communities are working, and what the big uplift of the space is. For example, what I said before, that you are not having a typical client, it's like more, or a customer, like a customer who is emotionally far away from the brand. Usually it's super close, which is a super cool uplift if you use it for your brand and not just try to do a one-way communication street, for example. So what I would say is, design-wise, they should stay in their focus, that it looks like the brand. Sometimes, of course, doing a bit more Web3-ish from the style or something, involve a bit, but in general, really take care that you onboard to your, for example, agency or in-house team for marketing, really people who know the space, who are like, you all know how fast that space is growing and evolving and things changing, who are really not knowing stuff from like 6 months ago because they read like 5 articles, but they feel it and they breathe the space. And then they have a pretty good chance to do it in the right way.
Got it, got it. No, that's very informative. The second question is like, when a consumer look into this, all of this branding or ad or design language that goes into, what is the key delight factor for them, or how do they identify, okay, this is a Web3 brand, and maybe we can explore this? What is that point for a consumer who is exploring the space?
Oh, I would say, that's not so easy to tell, I would say, because if the people are, let's go from the other side. People who are not in the space yet don't know that they're not in the space yet, that the Web3 space is working different and such. So, for example, a Web2 company would never say, we are a Web2 company. They not even know they are a Web2 company. So only when you're already in the space and you get the difference between Web1, Web2, Web3, then you can make a difference. So if people are looking into the space, then they slowly try to understand maybe what the blockchain is, what a Web3 company is, what NFTs are, ideally what's the benefit of an NFT is, for example. And brand-wise, to be honest, I don't think they really care if it looks
Got
like
it.
Web3 or not, if they're
Got it.
not real degens.
Got it. Got it. I think another key aspect of any consumer becoming a consumer is how we communicate our brand to them. On that, today a lot of Web3 brand are also reaching out to consumer who are not aware about this entire Web2, Web3 world. They are just regular consumer who might be a potential customer or potential consumer of your brand. So on that language, what is the design USP that you keep in your mind to drive awareness among these people so that they would be open to try a new brand which is also a Web3 brand, but they don't know about that, or they don't, truly care if it is a Web2 or Web3 brand. They just want to try out the brand. So how do you drive awareness in that space?
I would say it's like user-driven design. So the same like with web design, you really, like with user experience design, for example, user interface design, you really try to make it easy for the people to understand it. At the end, a design doesn't have just to look cool. I mean, nothing against other designers, but a lot of designers just take care that it looks cool and looks fresh and they like it. But what is super important for me is to make it easy for the people to understand what it is. So you can make everything super fancy and use, for example, with a website, for example, can be also with free website. You're scrolling, you're like, wow, that's cool. That's like a cool effect. And the colors are great. And when you're at the end of the website, you forgot to read what it is about or what the brand is doing, or is it a product or not? Is it about a community? Is it a PFP project? Is it a membership, whatever? So first of all, what is super important, to be honest, doesn't matter in which space you are, if you're a Web3 space or a Web2 company, try to make people understand what it is. So focus on good storytelling, good headlines that the people get it easily. So if you're reading a headline or seeing a website, you should get it also after a badass long day of work and your brain is already shut down. If you look at it and you don't understand it, it's not a good storytelling, it's not a good content, it's not a good design. So always try to make it work for people who are tired. And from that point, you start to design. You see where you can have the space to do something fancy because the people get what is around of it. They get the content and such. For example, with MetaBrew, we have a lot of illustrations, but all the illustrations are about beer. So if they're just scrolling and they see like free beer for life on the website, and then they see some beer cans, you know what it is about without reading all the small content pieces like the paragraphs and all of that. That is like what is important.
No, that is truly powerful, and I think as they say, if you can explain it to a 5-year-old kid, you are doing a good job in storytelling.
Exactly.
Do you have some other example of some brands who are doing this right today? Metabrew Society being one. Some other example that you like to show us?
Sure. Metabrew is always just like the first case because of course I know the brand so good because I'm building it. But I would say if you're like about an NFT project, I really think Azuki is doing like one of the best storytellings in the space because the branding is so on point on every single touch point they're having. People are super bullish about the project, not only because of the floor price, but because they feel it and they like the style. And if you really, for example, when they launched or showed the first time like the Azuki beans, every single beans had this own like name and little story, and you really got the whole concept out of it. And they had like the roadmap is pretty cool, handmade, like all the visuals. So brand wise, I would say Azuki is for me one of the strongest brands in the space. Just like brand wise, doesn't matter about utility and all of that, floor price, whatever. Just like branding, because they really mix it pretty good. You know, if you see that red color and that font, they could also say like not Azuki, but hello in that font, in that white font on that red color from Azuki, you immediately know if you're in the space that it's Azuki. For example, everything, like every single illustration is the same style. And what a lot of, doesn't matter if it's Web2 or Web3, a lot of companies forget is like the storytelling itself, like really that people feel a story behind it, like having a really good content copywriter who is getting the whole brand thing and the tone of voice, not just the story itself. So I would say like Azuki is pretty cool. And I love doodles, for example, too. Doesn't matter where you are, or Cool Cats, if you're somewhere they are hosting an event, you feel that colorful energy of doodles always.
So you do brand design, and with MetaBrew, you had to design, I guess, the cans, the bottles, the packaging as well. How was the shift, like, from design maybe websites or other brand areas, you went to actually designing a physical product? So what's the mindset change?
In my case, like I'm a brand designer or a designer for more than 10 years. And as I'm coming, of course, from like the Web2, like the normal world, the not Web3 world, I did a lot of packaging designs, design since years. So for me, it was more new to design for the Web3 community, but as I was already in the Web3 space before we started with MetaBrew, I got it a bit better. But yes, it's definitely a challenge. The more touch points you have, the more you have to think when you start with the branding. how the branding should look like, also to make it work on different kind of touch points. For example, if you're a typical Web3 brand without in real life products, you can go with super bold colors, which are looking perfectly on the screen. But as soon as you try to print it, it's not going to work out, and the company will look different in real life and digital wise. So you really have to think first. Doesn't matter if it's Metabrew or any kind of company which is about branding. What is the future about? Where do where do we want to be on which touch points? Of course, the company is evolving, but to make it work digital and offline, it's the best. So for me, Metabrew it's like a big, very challenging playground. It's so much fun. It's just, of course, a lot what you have to do if you're like on every single digital stuff. We are doing keynotes. For example, I was in December in Tokyo on a keynote for it. That was super crazy. To the keynote, then you need the presentations, you have a pitch deck, you have like PDF files sending out to your clients, or in this case to our community, if they're getting their own can design where they fill it out. So we have so many different kind of media stuff which our branding should fit to, that you really have to think when you start with a brand design, what challenges do we have, and then make it work from the beginning, because otherwise you have to rebrand after some month, and that's like worst case in branding. If you're like having, for example, like us, holders in more than 45 countries, and after half a year you're like, but now we look different. that is always like the worst.
If let's just assume there's a new company or a new project starting up in Web3, they're launching their NFTs. From a brand perspective, what's the checklist that they should look at? Or
I would definitely say from the very first beginning, you should know who ideally your community is. Like, is it a big mix of people? Is it more about women? Is it more about guys? Are there more technical people? Is it about, for example, with Asuki, people who love like anime and such? Because then you know what kind of design direction you're going. So know the people you try to attract. That's like the first thing. And from that side, I would say at least a good logo design, which is working digital and in real life, colors, fonts, and best case would be like a returning element which you can play, like, for example, on the website, on social media. Doesn't matter if it's like a pattern or a gradient or illustration style, because that what makes the people recognize like the brand. So I would say knowing who you try to attract, logo, fonts, colors, and a returning element. That's like the baseline I would go with. And if you're an NFT project, try to really, if you have an artist doing the art and a designer doing the branding, they should talk to each other because that it makes that it fits together at the end, that it's like a whole concept, and not everyone is doing their stuff.
Thanks for answering that. That was insightful. I mean, this question is, I mean, the audience here is our NFT artist. What tips do you give an NFT artist who wants to make new NFTs? Are there any unsaid rules or some baselines that they should keep an eye on?
Yeah. Depending what kind of art you're doing. For example, if you're going for a PFP project, for example, or PFP art, really try to think at the beginning what kind of traits you want to do, that they are really working out together. Because sometimes you have, like, if you're going for a PFP, like, for example, Female Pleasure Society, where we did the art for, you have sometimes long hair, short hair, then you have like earrings or makeup or glasses or a base cap. And it's way easier if you really make all traits work together, because sometimes it's like this hair, the long hair is not working with the long earrings, because then you have a bad overlay and it's wrong. Or you can do that, but then it's like you have so many exceptions that you really tried, or you really need more time to get all the traits work together, and then you really have to review it very, very closely, that you're not like that people are minting PFP, for example, where the glasses are not fitting with the hair. So really try to go a bit deeper at the beginning with the concept of the traits, for example. And also, which is pretty cool, really see which projects on the market, doesn't matter if it's on Solana or Ethereum or whatever, which project are the people really bullish on having it as a PFP. So really see where's like the connection. Do the people, it's not about at the end about apes or a bird or whatever, but people really want to connect usually with their PFP, otherwise they're not publishing it. So the traits maybe should be more close to the audience, like to your target group, for example. What do they feel connected with? Do you have like, if you're try to speak to a very creative community, makes maybe sense to show some stuff about music and art and all of which is about creation, for example. So dig also there a bit deeper about the concept and not just try to make it look lovely for you, but make it work for your audience to really connect with their own PFP.
Got it. So, Web3 is about fancy doodles, some games, CryptoKitties, that stuff, which is not, I would say not serious, but it's more fun. It's more a little cartoonish. And beer is something which is not so, yeah, you get what I'm trying to say. How did it go about, like whenever people say Web3 or NFTs, they think, hey, it's a fancy cartoon or whatever. And then to build, let's say, design NFTs for a beer brand. How difficult was that? How did you go about it? And it's a real product as well. In the end of the day, you want people to take it seriously and not lightly.
Exactly. Well, at the beginning, like people either say like NFTs are a scam, or it's like right-click save in JPEG. What we tried with Metabrew, for example, I tried to make it not look too playful, for example, or I really thought about doing a PFP for Metabrew, because we wanted, usually it's always great if the people use it as a PFP, because then you have like outreach and people see it. But the downside would be that people maybe not get from the beginning that we are not a typical NFT project. So that's why I made it less playful, and we decided to not like the NFTs itself, that they're not like a PFP, but more like an old certificate, more like a shareholder certificate, that the people look at it and they're like confused a bit, like, what is it? And then they read the text, like the content, and it's about beer. If it would be just like a guy with a beer in the hand, you would maybe think like, well, it's an NFT project with a guy and a beer in the hand, and not like they get free beer if they're having a NFT. So my part was, I really was focusing on make it look a bit different to the classic NFT projects which were in the market last year, because we started with the being visible, I think it was in April 2022, where most NFT projects were not about in real life products.
Could you point us towards other companies which are trying to build a brand using NFTs, like which have real or tangible products, like Female Society, Metabrew?
Yeah.
You have any other such examples that our viewers can take a look at?
Oh, there are several, also like in the food and drinking business, for example, like Amber Island is about whiskey, for example. They have a lot of whiskey holders, or Rick House DAO. He's also, I have a Moonbird. He's also in the Proof of Moonbird community. He's also about bar and drink stuff, like drinks. So in that direction, Rick House DAO, exactly. And yeah, there are several on the market. It's getting more and more. I would say most of them, and I don't mean it in a bad way, don't try to make it as big as we do. As our mission is to build an international beer brand, like a big, like really a big beer brand that people know, not just in the space, because like NFT and Web3 is like just about, I would say 20-25% of our business case. The rest, 70-80%, is about just typical selling beer to a market just with the help of the Web3 community. And most projects are a bit smaller, which is great too. And there you have more and more on the market focusing on in real life utilities, or about memberships, for example, like a wine project where you get, if you're holding the NFT, you are an exclusive member and you get live exclusive access to exclusive wines people without the NFT wouldn't be able to buy, for example. So I'm pretty happy about that. More and more people see that NFTs are not about right-click save, but more like building actual companies and bringing real life value to people. Not that the community is not a value point, but that you have more use cases for NFTs out there.
Oh, no, that's absolutely great. And you are associated with two of those amazing projects
exactly.
that we have here in Metaverse Simplified.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Chantal. It was amazing speaking with you. I hope guests have taken a lot of productive ways to improve their projects and stuff on how to build their brands.
Yeah, it
So
was
thanks
quite
so much for having
amazing.
me.
Yeah, it was quite amazing. I think the key takeaway is how we can define our design language to make it more Web3. So thank you so much for taking your time and joining our podcast. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you like, we are coming up with more episodes. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, to talk to me, that was a great and really, really nice talk. Thanks.
Likewise. Thank you.